Hello and welcome to the Dead Unicorn. My name is Corey. This is the Tabletop Role-Playing Game Club, and I am alone today. Just me. And I hope I am enough, because I don't think I'm enough. These live streams, I'm deathly afraid of doing this alone, but Tarek is out today. He is doing some self-care and helping out his wife, so I could not get another person to come on in and help me out. But hey, maybe I have you, my loyal viewers, who will chat me up in the comments, chat me up in the chat, and help me out as we go through the, what's it called, the Fantasy Flight version of the L5R rules, as we try to make them better, change them in a positive way. Not to say that the originals aren't great, it's just that we want to keep what works and change what doesn't. And the first thing I like to do when doing this is to check the comments. People leave comments on my last video, they hit me up on Discord, and and you can join my Patreon and make changes, suggested changes to the document, which is not here. Is not. Nope. Nobody has done that yet. It's fine. But yeah, before I get to it, I have to say that I'm a founder on Moonbeam, which is a streaming service. It's not I guess it's like Twitch with some Discord elements. Like, they mushed Twitch and Discord together and created this streaming platform called Moonbeam that is specifically for tabletop role-playing games. Or at least that was the draw, was the pitch. It was for tabletop role-playing games. And a lot of people were excited about it. I'm not sold. Putting tabletop role-playing games in its own little corner, right, makes it a more niche place, in my opinion. It doesn't expand what role-playing games are to everybody. Remember when comic books used to be in every corner store, even bookshop and stuff like that? And then in the 90s, they moved away from that and put them in their own comic book store. And then sales plummeted because they were put in their own little space rather than being in the spaces where everyone can see them and enjoy them and discover them. So I have my reservations about it. But I'm also like, if they make it work, it might be a really cool place for role-playing gamers. And like, I'm open to the possibility that I could be wrong. And I did put money forward to this project to become a founder. So check out Moonbeam. It is in the comments, not the comments. It's in the description. That link is good for the first 50 people. After 50, that link will no longer work. Benjamin Combe, hello to you too. I am currently live on Moonbeam. It is in alpha. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it goes. I am... What? Do I go over here? Yeah, okay. There I am. There's my beautiful face on Moonbeam. Okay. You can check me out there. You can check me out here. I'm simulcasting to both places. But I will not be leaving YouTube. Trust me on this. Hi, Wargiz. Welcome back. Okay, let's get to our comments from the last time. I don't care whether it was on the last video or previous videos. I'm just going to go back in time organically and see what people have said. I will not be saying any names. I won't be putting these up on the screen here because I don't want to call people out, but I do want to see what they have to say. There is a rank 3 general. This is on Remaking Opportunities, Part 2. By the way, I put all of these in a playlist now. So if you're looking for part 1, there is a L5R rewrite playlist that you can check out. There is a rank 3 General Kata, Heart Piercing Strike. This is like must have for Bushis. Earth opportunity to lower critics is lifesaver for this. 100% my Bushi players took this kata. Even some non-Bushi players took it. Let's check it out. Heart Piercing Strike. Under the katas, we'll go on back here. We're in their slippery maneuvers. We're in techniques now. Invocations. We need kata. Kata. Here we go. Heart Piercing Strike. Heart Piercing Strike. Battle is the art of killing. It's a rank 3. Rank 3. Battle is the art of killing, and woe betides any warrior who forgets it. With a roar, the Bushi launches forward, stabbing out with their weapons to fatally impale their enemy. Even if the strike does not slay the foe, it is likely to weaken them significantly. As an attack and movement action, using a readied weapon, you may make a TN4 martial arts fire check using the appropriate skill for that weapon, targeting one character within that weapon's range. If you succeed, the target suffers a critical strike with severity equal to your weapon's deadliness plus your bonus successes. The TN of the fitness check to resist this critical strike is 3 air 4 water 1 instead of the normal TN. If you fail, you suffer the disoriented condition. Who is you? Oh, yeah. If you fail your heart-piercing strike, you're disoriented. Okay. An opportunity before resolving the effect, move up to 1 range band towards your target. Yeah, a lot of my players have this. It is an instant critical hit. It bypasses the regular strike rules and having to spend opportunity for it. And you can use bonus successes instead of opportunity to increase your critical hit. Your deadliness for your, yeah. It's a solid kata. I feel like, yeah, everybody's gonna, if you're a Bushi, everybody's gonna take this because even though it doubles the TN from 2 to 4, people are gonna use it because it bypasses the whole 2 opportunities, and there's less opportunity symbols on dice than successes. So getting 4 opportunity, I think, is more likely, especially with explosive successes, than it is getting 2 opportunity. I may be wrong. Like to hear what you think about it. But yeah, Heart Piercing Strike I think is solid. Solid. Benjamin says, in his opinion, it's not such a busted kata. I'm surprised because none of my players have this. It plays heavily on the fire stance. Not everyone has enough fire to make a TN4 fire check. Yeah. Some, if you're a crab, you want to focus on earth, and maybe you won't have that because you're not a fire guy. Makes sense. Wargiz says, solid. Getting more successes is easier than opportunity. Exactly. Yes. And here's the thing. Here's the thing on fire stance. It says you get extra deadliness due to bonus successes instead of opportunity. And if you keep a strife on fire stance, you add bonus successes equal to the number of strife you keep as long as you made the initial TN. That's important because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I didn't make the TN, but I got strife and those add bonus successes. And I'm like, nah, read the rule again. You have to succeed at the roll in order to change strife into bonus successes on fire stance. But yeah, if you do an awesome roll and gather a lot of strife, you hit your 4 TN and then every strife is then a bonus success. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a lot. Next comment comes from the last video, Conditions Revised Again. Tarek and Sasha, Little Domestic Dispute was adorable. Okay. We have egos here. We're going to bump heads. We all have ideas about what this game is should look like and where the problems lie. And that's why I have Tarek here with me to keep me sane, to keep me grounded, to make sure I'm not in my bubble when I create a new rule. And also why I read comments and why I'm listening to you. It's super, super important. That said, yeah, we're going to get heated. Some people are going to be sad that their idea didn't get in, or that an idea did get in that they don't like. This is just how things are going to work. And sometimes there's miscommunications and all of that. It's just how it is. I'm okay with that. Personally, he continues, personally, I enjoy rolling for NPCs. That's the game part of RPGs, which I don't want to miss out on just because I'm the game master. I'm actually a huge fan of custom dice. Gimmicky as hell, but sure they feel unique and add to the game's aura. Yeah, the dice have vibe to them. They definitely do. So we talked about how the special dice, the proprietary dice of Legend of the Five Rings, without numbers, they got little symbols on them, right? A lot of people viewed them as a way for Fantasy Flight to like nickel and dime every last cent out of people for wanting to play their game. And maybe it does add to the theatrics of the game. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it does something good for the game. Adds to the theatrics, adds to the vibes, the aura, however you want to say it. It has a special kind of nuance these dice have that maybe you can't get from just numbers. I mean, unless you want to number all of your dice in kanji. Which I'm sure people have bought Chinese symboled numbered dice. On to rolling for NPCs. So we're tossing around the idea that NPCs don't roll, because we see NPCs as set pieces, features of a game to make the story go forward and create obstacles and that sort of thing. We see them as different from the PCs in a more story-driven kind of thing. And as a game master in that kind of setting, you're going to miss out on the rolling. But a lot of people, they think that the rolling is it's competitive at that point. It's you against the game master, right? And if the game master rolls behind his shield and say you take 4 damage from this, like in Dungeons and Dragons, there's no recourse for that. It hits your armor class, you take 4 damage, and that's what happens. And we want to say instead, a goblin is attacking you, roll your defense, add whatever defense modifiers you want to put on that, or use whatever defense equipment, and then it's on you, the player, to get out of the way. And that way it feels like, even though the same die roll, the same random result, but the player is doing it and they get that, they feel like they have that kind of agency. So what kind of agency does the game master have? They have everything else. Literally, they're putting together the game. And I think to me, it's just a different role. That said, I do understand the idea of like, hey, I want to roll some dice too. I want to make, I want to be in the grit with my players and have that fun. But I just think the game master is a totally different role. I really like characters with the same role can be very different in how they play, based on the rings they are good in. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, the choice of rings and where it definitely changes how a character like focuses, because if you have a higher water ring, even though you're a courtier, you're going to look for water based shuji instead of the air based shuji, making you kind of a different kind of person. I like that. Dungeon master with an ego, I never. Yeah, yeah. um Wargiz says, I actually got kanji dice for Christmas. They look nice, but I literally can't read them. Well, I bet you can do 1, 2, and 3. And 4 is a little like, it's a little box. It got 4 sides. Or is that 5? I think that's 5. Maybe I'm wrong. um, the next one comes from the last live stream. I just want to say Sasha is right as hell. If a GM doesn't have to roll, the 3 strife consequence mechanic is much more accommodating. Combat in L5R is very, very crunchy and lengthy. I would love not to have to roll at all for NPCs and game masters. Alas, this is not the case. So yeah, that's somebody on my side of that. we all kind of want different things from our games. Yeah. But thanks for that comment. We're gonna go forward on that. So that seems to be it. Let's move on to our conditions. We got a few more conditions we have to get through. Personal effects. I lost my page. I lost my page. We got to do this. Oh, now I'm too far. Honor scores. I just saw one little thing that said emotional hurdles, and I was wondering, like, how can you put emotional rules into a game? Something I've been thinking about. I don't have any solid answer to that. I know a lot of game systems try to put like an emotion into the game, like Rage the Apocalypse had rage points, or not Rage the Werewolf the Apocalypse had rage points, but like at sitting around a table, I didn't feel ragey using. It's just like, oh, I took a point of damage first in combat, I guess I get a rage or something like. It's just a point on a character sheet. Okay, here we are. So we're almost done with these conditions. We were down to silence. By the way, with this as well, we have our document. This is a Google document, and you can access this if you are a patron, and you can make notes on it. You can tell me where you think I should change, things like that, directly onto this document if you are a patron. So, silenced, the description is, the character has been rendered temporarily speechless by shock or a swift blow. A silenced character increases their TN of their scheme action checks and checks to activate invocations such as Meiho, invocations Meiho and Shuji by 3. At the end of the character's turn, if they did not perform a scheme action or make a check requiring speech, remove this condition. So again, this falls into the same thing as immobilized. Because in immobilized, the character is entangled, pinned down, or otherwise incapable of movement. All they need to do to get rid of it is not move, and then they're out for some reason. I guess instead of moving, they are removing whatever is immobilizing them. With silence, it specifically says that here you have been rendered temporarily speechless by shock or swift blow, meaning like your frightened, speechless. You're awestruck, maybe? Or a swift blow, meaning somebody has struck your throat, right? Shoved an apple in your mouth. Maybe. But it doesn't, like, what if you're gagged? Like, based on these rules, if you're bound in a chair and gagged, all you have to do is spend one turn not doing anything, and then boom, you are no longer bound in a chair by rope and gagged. Which, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. It makes me wonder, it makes me want to, like, talk to the authors of this game to see what the idea was behind it. So instead of, so I'm going to say silenced. Shock, a blow, or some other hindrance makes you speechless. The effects, I think the effects should be the same, and it's removed when the hindrance is removed or follow the guidelines of the technique used to silence. So basically this means instead of just saying, a technique that makes someone silent, because what if there's like an area of effect silence? What if I like did an invocation that says this terrain quality now makes people silent? Which, I mean, why shouldn't there be like something like that? Instead of just saying, hey, everybody in there gets the silent condition, in which case it's just removed if they didn't perform a scheme action. Instead, just have the guidelines of when it's removed in the invocation that makes you silenced, right? If you use a ball gag, or a ball gag, where's my brain? If you use a gag on somebody, there should be a TN on how to remove the gag, right? Something like that. Seems pretty reasonable to me, rather than the silence condition is you just get rid of it. Org is, I think several of the rules needs another pass. Several seem to have been written with specific scenarios in a place and don't logically make sense in others. Yeah. Uh-huh. I very much agree. We've gone through bleeding already. So, we got, what, two more of these. Unconscious. The character has been knocked out, has fallen asleep, or otherwise been rendered totally unaware of their surroundings. An unconscious character cannot move, perform actions, or otherwise significantly act upon the physical world. An unconscious character can still make checks to resist effects, but they cannot generally make checks that represent any agency on their part. Increase the severity of any critical strike the character suffers by 10. An unconscious character cannot defend against damage, but they generally wake up if they hear a loud noise, suffer harm, or otherwise experience something that would normally wake someone. An unconscious person may spend 1 void point to awaken immediately, their instincts arousing them in time to defend against damage. Characters also generally awaken after several hours. This rule has led to some really weird situations in my game. Because if you suffer harm, you wake up and the unconscious condition is removed. The unconscious condition can be gained if you are incapacitated and take a critical strike. And remember, we're trying to change the name of incapacitated to like spent or fatigued, something like that. I think fatigue is too close to exhausted. I like spent better. I mean, that's just a preference, I think, because we already have exhausted, and exhausted means you're sleepless. And incapacitated, when people think incapacitated, they already think they're unconscious or they can't do anything. And that's not true. You can move, you can take calming breaths, there are things you can do while incapacitated. So I just want to change it to spent, as in like, you're just out of juice rather than unconscious. But here, like, if you are incapacitated and you take a critical strike, you fall unconscious. Then, if you're unconscious and you take a critical strike, you wake back up. I've had really tough Oni that can take several critical strikes, and they're just coup de grace it over and over. They're like, boom, it's down. Boom, it's up. Boom, it's down. Boom, it's up. And it makes a very tense scene against an Oni that it's finally down and you have a victory turn into kind of a cartoon at the end. And it killed the vibes. It really did. Benjamin says, I never figured out the bleeding and dangerous terrain. As is, the Makibichi, the caltrips, are literally useless. Yeah, if you dangerous terrain, if you don't keep any dice with strife on them, they don't do any damage. Which, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Because you can just walk through them and then do your roll after you went through that terrain quality. I don't like. It's one of the things that we want to change. And like, you can sit in the middle of fire and not do anything. Oh, everything's burning down around me. I'll just stay here. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I can see much better now that everything's on fire, right? And I'm not going to take any damage as long as I don't roll any dice. I can see bleeding dangerous not affecting you if you don't take an action or don't keep strife, and you are deliberately acting cautiously to avoid harm, but once you fall unconscious while bleeding or laying in fire, you don't take any harm. I know, right? So we changed bleeding. I'm going to go back to bleeding to make sure you understand how I've changed it. So this is burning. Bleeding. Bleeding was the first one. So we've changed it to every round a character takes 1 fatigue unless they spend an opportunity on their action or take no other action other than stifling the bleeding. This doesn't mean you've removed the bleeding condition. This just means you're stopping. You got a hand over it and you're stopping it. We tossed around whether it would be 1 fatigue or 2 fatigue. 1 seems fine right now. If unconscious, the character will take 1 fatigue as normal. If their fatigue equals double their endurance, they gain dying 1. If the character, as another condition, dying 1. If a character takes a critical strike, the severity is increased by 5. And the removal of it is as normal. You just do a medicine check to get rid of it. So this way, no matter what you do, you're taking 1 fatigue. Unless, during your dice roll, you use an opportunity to keep yourself from bleeding out, or you take no other action than to stifle your bleeding. So you can just sit there and hold your hand on it, or you can hit somebody with your sword. Oh, I have an opportunity, so I'm hitting you with my sword while standing in a way that doesn't make me spurt blood or something. And I think, bleeding out should be just a loss or an increase in fatigue points, because the more blood you lose, the more you're tired. That makes sense. It makes sense to me. The next one. So that's silenced. And I think silenced is okay. We can move on from that to... Oh, we were moving on to unconscious. I think... I don't know how I want to change unconscious here. I got sidetracked. Unconscious. So I like that an unconscious character can't move, perform actions. You're down. This is your down condition, right? I like that critical strikes increase by a severity of 10. And that makes sense because you can coup de grace someone. Just like, and you coup de grace them. And they cannot defend, which means they cannot take fatigue to keep themselves from taking a critical strike. Remember, if you don't defend, then you take a critical strike rather than taking fatigue. But they generally wake up when they hear a loud noise, suffer harm, or otherwise experience something that would normally wake someone up. I think that's what needs to change. I think and I think it needs to change like this. Let me bring the document back. Removed when they spend a void. That's fine. Well, yeah, they spend a void. So, removed when they hear a loud noise, suffer harm, or otherwise experience something that would normally wake someone, unless they are also incapacitated. Actually, let's put spent. Let's put spent there and put incapacitated like that. Yeah. Because we want this document to build on each other. So, yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Maybe reduce the TN for melee attacks by 1 against unconscious targets. Here's the thing. Like, attacking anything is a TN2. It just shows competency with your weapon. It's not actually... Like, we think, like, it's TN2 because they're jumping around and dodging and pairing with their... That's not it at all. That is not it. Because hitting a vase sitting on it is also TN2. The jumping around and parrying and everything like that, that is somebody defending by taking fatigue points. The TN2 is just basic competency with your weapon. That's all it is. And that's one of the confusing things about this edition of Legend of the Five Rings. What makes it even more confusing is that air stance increases the TN to 3 because you're jumping around or you're being flowy or something. Yeah. The game kind of contradicts itself sometimes. But maybe we can untangle that mess. Maybe we can. Um, the last one is wounded. And aligning the sharp edge towards the target is TN2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right. You figured it out. It seems weird, right? But here's the deal. In Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of other games that use Dungeons and Dragons as their template, hit points are also like your energy and fatigue for the most part. They're not meat points. When they go to 0 and you go down, that's when someone actually strikes you and hits you, and then you go down. And your armor class is just them trying to make it so you have to defend yourself by taking hit points. It's all games. And the Dungeons and Dragons book itself tries to uh say it's part meat points and part fatigue and skill expenditure. And that's true to an extent, because if it was all just fatigue, then like when a snake bites you, why do I have to make a poison save? I took hit points. That's me defending myself. Which is one of the hard things that L5R has to get through. If you look for the rules for poison, you have to strike somebody. Taking fatigue points, poison doesn't affect that, unless you have a special ninjutsu that makes it do that. So yeah. Also, like, falling damage takes hit points too, which, like, you can survive terminal velocity if you have enough hit points. And it's the same way in L5R. You don't take a wound from falling. You take fatigue to uh, fall correctly, defend against your fall. I like wounded. Let me read it real quick. And also I like thematic injuries by ring. I love that rule. But let's just read wounded for a second here. Part of the character's body is injured badly enough to hinder their use of it. This is reflected mechanically by one of their rings being negatively affected when the character uses it. It should be recorded along with the condition. Effect. The condition has two forms: lightly wounded, severely wounded. And it's removed when any character can provide treatment by making a TN4 medicine water check as a downtime activity. So you can't do it during combat, unless you have some sort of special technique that allows you to do that. If they succeed, the injured character removes lightly wounded or severely wounded down to lightly wounded. This check can be attempted once per wound per week. Additionally, a character can attempt to heal through bed rest. Once per week, the wounded ring a character may take is a TN3 fitness check that uses that ring. If they succeed, they remove the lightly wounded condition or reduce the severely wounded to the lightly wounded condition. Effects. A lightly wounded character increases their TN of the check affected by 1. If the character suffers the severely wounded condition for the same ring, remove this condition. If the character would suffer the lightly wounded condition again, remove it, and they suffer a severely wounded condition to that ring. I like that the scaling, like if you take a hit that you already have taken, it moves it up one level. But that kind of ends once you get to the permanent injury under severely wounded. A severely wounded character increases the TN of their checks affecting the ring by 3. If the character suffers lightly wounded or severely wounded for the same ring, they remove it and suffer the effects of a severity 8 critical strike for that ring, as if they had failed the check to resist it. I would rather than lightly wounded or severely wounded or whatever, move one up. I would just like a tally of the critical strikes you take. For every critical strike you take, you should like every critical strike beyond every critical strike you take increases the severity of the next one by 2 or 3. I don't see why they don't do that. I mean, I think they do that in the Star Wars and Genesis system, and I don't know why they don't do that here, because it's a more elegant system, right? That that's just my thoughts. I know I'm on a delay, so and you got to type. So tell me what you think about it. Yeah, that's kind of what I think. So on wounded, instead of lightly wounded or severely wounded multiple times leads to greater wounds, follow the new critical hit rules that increase severity for each crit hit you take. And maybe we'll come back. If that doesn't work out, we'll come back and revise this. Like I said, this is nothing here is set in stone. This is a document that I'm just putting together. It's a rough draft. Everything is subject to change. If you have other ideas, love to hear them. Also join the Patreon and just change stuff in the document. Suggest changes like you do on a Google Doc. Yeah, otherwise you have a PC that can tank multiple crit strikes in a fight. Yeah, yes, Benjamin. The the crit scaling is only in the stance you currently have. That can make things way more complicated. Like, I understand, like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So you can take lightly wounded in these different. So that does make sense, and I think that's why they made it like this. Um, that said, uh, saying how many crits you take in each ring, that can be a lot of paperwork, a lot of like, uh, it can get confusing. So yeah, this deserves a bit of playtest, a bit of knocking around. The current scaling is only in the stance you currently are. Yeah, when you change your stance, like it's like, oh, I took a arrow to the arm, so now I'm not going to favor arms. I'm going to favor like core strength, and it's not going to do anything. That wound in my uh what would it be? Fire. It'd be in my fire is not affecting me when I'm on Earth and I'm using my core instead of my arms to, do my fighting. That said, I don't know if that 100% makes sense realistically, but what are we doing here? Do we care more about realism or fun and simplicity, ease of use for the game? And maybe the entire crit system uh, needs a revision. The entire wound system needs a revision, and that's something like I'd think about. Maybe instead of the crits that they have there, we change everything and kind of make it a little different to maybe be more realistic. Because just because it's realistic doesn't mean it's less fun. Because I said, like, oh, do we care about realism or fun? That's not the. It's realism or simplicity. Usually, the more realistic something is, the less simple it gets. Usually, but realism can be fun, and simplicity can be fun. I usually err on the side of simplicity. That's just how I view things. So yeah, for right now, we're just gonna write this, and kind of move on. We'll come back. We'll revisit this when we're doing critical hits and wounds and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's it for conditions. Let's go and check out. It's easy to complexify. It's hard to simplify. Always aim to simplify. Yeah, 100%. So this is harm and healing. We're gonna have an entire live stream just for harm and healing. But before that, we need to check out this terrain. Oh, terrain. Terrain qualities. So I do like the idea of terrain qualities. I think they're good. So let's get into it. Dangerous terrain. I know we have to change this. So dangerous terrain is physically hazardous to enter or even to linger in. This mundane terrain is found in most regions. Effects. When a character performs a check while within dangerous terrain, the character suffers physical damage equal to the strife symbols on their kept dice. Fire, intense cold, thawing ice, steep inclines, jagged rocks, an uncovered foundation. I'm not sure what that means. An uncovered foundation. Or rubble. So, if you're in the middle of fire, all you have to do is not keep strife symbols. No, if you're in dangerous terrain and you're taking just a move action, if you're moving through it, there should be some sort of penalty to that. So, yeah, 100%. So how do we change this? How do we do this? Oh yeah. There are more terrain features in Fields of Victory. I am going to forget them. On purpose. We'll deal with supplement books way later. We're going to concentrate on the main book and try to get the main book rules good before we even like touch anything else. Everything else is just frosting. Right? Yeah. So, like bleeding, we could make it. So, Wargiz says, I might suggest a difference between dangerous terrain to act in and terrain that is actually actively dangerous to just be in. So, maybe there's two kinds of dangerous terrain. A dangerous terrain where, like, you're in thorns or you're in rubble, right? You're in jagged rocks. And that is when you take actions, you might get harmed. Oh, I got a little kitty battle back there happening. I don't know if y'all can see that. Oh, that's a good slap. That's a good cat slap right there. Okay, that was fun. Yeah, harmful terrain. There could be dangerous terrain. Change the name. change the name to harmful terrain. And then dangerous terrain, or no, dangerous terrain and then harmful terrain. I keep forgetting the M in harmful. Okay, yeah, I like this idea. I like it a lot. Thanks, guys. That way, if you're in something that's like fire or bitter cold or like, yeah, things that are actively harming you in the area, you take active harm. And things that are passively harming you in the area, you only take damage when you're doing something. I like that. So dangerous terrain is terrain that passively is passively dangerous, like rubble, sharp rocks or glass on the ground, or yeah, or thorns. Thorns will work too. And harmful terrain is terrain that actively is hurting a character, like fire, bitter cold, dagger rain. I mean, if you watch Adventure Time, you know dagger rain. Don't go out in it. Yeah, this is good. This works. So, dangerous terrain rules as normal, except when passing through dangerous terrain, take 1 point of fatigue. Yeah, when passing through, take 1 point of fatigue. You walked through that area. So even if you move through it and then do an action, when you're outside of it, you still take 1 point of fatigue when passing through it because you actively did something. That seems fair. And harmful terrain, take 1 to 3 points of fatigue every round inside the terrain. You can spend an opportunity to reduce the fatigue gain by 1 for every... Oh. You know what? I'm going to I think I wrote this wrong. We're going to say reduce the fatigue by 1 for every spent opportunity. On an action within the terrain. Yeah. Opportunity to get to reduce the fatigue gain. There might also be equipment that can reduce the fatigue gain. For example, heavy coats might reduce fatigue given by cold damage. Right? Yeah, I think so. Uh-huh. Yeah. I think that's great. Harmful terrain. Fatigue gain minimum to 0 or to 1. No, 0 is fine. If they spend opportunity to reduce it to 0, I'm perfectly happy with that. I think that's fair. They have opportunity on their roll. They should, I think 0's fine. I like rewarding players. Because, like, in this version of the game we're creating, there are consequences. So there's and things that they can get from spending their opportunities on other things. There's not a lot of things of opportunities I think it's fine. Minimum of 0. Yeah. Okay, we have time for one more terrain quality. So let's check out Defiled. Defiled terrain. Oh, let me get the book back. I don't know how many of you are following along with your own book at home, and did you know that there are different they don't tell you that there are different editions of the book, but there are different, like, I think like bleeding is different from one book to another, a different printing, and they never told you that it exists. And I made a video about it, but yeah, there are several different versions of this book, and they didn't tell you. Defiled terrain is afflicted by the vile touch of the Shadowlands. Even those uneducated in dark secrets of the realm beyond the Caillou Wall feel a pervasive sense of wrongness on such unholy ground. It is more common in the Shadowlands than within the Emerald Empire. This is supernatural terrain found especially in hallowed places. At the end of the scene, each character who was within defiled terrain must make a TN2 fitness or meditation check. Each character who fails suffers the afflicted condition. Tainted beings reduce the TN of their checks to resist by 1 while in defiled terrain. An Oni's lair, a battlefield with unburnt dead, haunted castle, all that kind of stuff. Bleeding is different in the French version. I wonder. Now you got me curious. But no, I've got to focus on this defiled thing. Okay. So tainted beings aren't immune to the defiled condition, even though that's where they spend all of their time. Should all of my NPCs have the afflicted condition? Should they all be afflicted because they've been spending all of their time within defiled terrain? Does that make sense? Or is this something that only affects the PCs? Shadowland tainted PCs? Or is this something that monsters are immune to? It doesn't say monsters or supernatural creatures are immune to defiled terrain. Right? It says examples are an Oni lair. So an Oni who spends all of his time in the Oni lair has to constantly make fitness or meditation checks or become afflicted. It makes no sense. So first, defiled, we got to make it only affect it only affects non-tainted characters, Because that doesn't make sense otherwise. Otherwise, yeah, I'm okay with it. At the end of each scene, like how they cut up their time is interesting because like if I do a combat scene, then that's a scene. But then I can do a downtime scene which is infinitely, not infinitely, but like magnitudes longer than a fight scene. And then that's a scene, but they both only get one defile check. So I would say I would change it to this. Effects at the end of the day, when any character has been in defiled terrain, they make a TN, or they make a check versus afflicted. Yeah. So if you were in it, at the end of the day, if you have been in defiled terrain, you make your check. And you only have to do it once per day. Right? I think that's fine. Maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, the crab have days that they go into the Shadowlands and they're out there for like a week or two and then come back. And they don't go out there with like, they go out there with like a one or two jade fingers and then they all come back. So what jade does, Benjamin, is when you get the afflicted condition, you can instead move the afflicted condition to your jade or any other item you have that is blessed. And jade has I think it's holy or blessed. I forget what the exact term is, but any of those items will then become damaged if you don't take the afflicting condition. If you fail your roll, take the afflicted condition, and then move it to your item, that item instead becomes damaged. And if it's damaged twice, it becomes destroyed. So if you have a Finger of Jade, it can be used 2 times if you fail 2 rolls. And my players for a Shinneman Forest game had 2 Fingers of Jade each, pretty much, and it was perfectly fine for them. They were perfectly okay. Jade should last longer than 3 times. Here's the thing. Are Jade Fingers durable? Do they last 3 times? Because a durable condition can make it last another time. But yeah, like, shouldn't a larger item, take more hits instead of just damaged and destroyed? But I'm thinking like, I don't know, like if I have a Jade Katana and maybe it should only take 2 hits, even though it's longer than a finger of Jade, but a Finger of Jade is like, yeah, it's made to do that. Well, like Jade Katanas, but also a Jade, if you're like carrying a Jade statue, same thing. I don't know. Like, maybe we should be giving more items the durable quality. Yeah, they lasted 7 days in 4th edition. It was just like a time limit that your Jade would just run out on. I kind of like this better. Holy things have an inherent durable trait. Now you got me wanting to check it out. Let's go back. Boom. We're in items now. Here we go. Sacred. Okay, when an otherworldly being makes an attack or scheme action targeting a character, targeting the wearer of one or more sacred items, increase the TN by 1, which means if you're wearing Jade, uh, Oni are less likely to hit you. While you are carrying one or more sacred items, if you regain the afflicting condition, you may instead choose one of those items to become damaged instead. Sacred weapons ignore all resistances possessed by otherworldly and tainted beings. No, they're not. Sacred does not give a inherent durable quality. But let's check Finger of Jade. Finger of Jade, rarity 6, qualities only sacred. So yeah, they only last for two hits. But they only cost 1 Koku. That's why most of my players have like 2 or 3 of them. And they're small. You can carry a bunch of them. Doesn't matter. I'm perfectly okay with that. Maybe a larger piece, maybe like a Jade statue, has the durable quality. But have you ever known a Jade statue to be durable? Maybe there should be another item quality that is like extra taint resistant or something like that. But yeah, defiled. Anything else I can do with defiled? Oh no, I'm in armies. Hmm. I think it does need. Oh my goodness, I am so lost. I'm back to conditions. Here it is. Terrain. I think otherwise this is fine. I think I did it. I think I made defiled okay. If you have been in any defiled terrain, only at the end of the day, you take your check. Yeah. And tainted characters are just immune to defiled terrain. I think that's it. I'm we have reached the end of our hour-long time together. And I want to thank you, Orgiz and Benjamin, for helping me out, getting my thoughts down, giving me great suggestions. I love it all. If you're watching this as a recorded stream later on, please give me your comments. Like I said, I go through the comments at the beginning of every one of these to make sure that everything, like, people are being heard and we can make the best changes to this game possible. Hopefully the people that actually make this game are watching and they can see what we want and what the fans of Dead Unicorn see as a better version of the game. Maybe they'll make it into the next version. I hope we can. Maybe. But yeah. I had a great time. Hope you did too. Yeah, lovely time. It was just me today. Whew, and I made it through it. So go why am I so nervous all of a sudden? Whew. Guys, thank you for the great time as well. Go out, play your own game, go roll some dice.